stand up strong. All my girls, so if you're with me, it's right on with me. There ain't nothing like it. The black girl magic, black girl magic.
What's going on, tribe? My name is Nicole.
And my name is Kia, and we are the co-founders of Glamourina.
And Glamourina is an inclusive women's lifestyle brand specializing in culturally inspired activewear, intentionally designed to complement all complexions and body types. Our mission is to create a safe space in health and wellness where every body belongs.
Welcome to Behind Glamourina, Moms on a Mission podcast, where we discuss how we balance being successful Black women entrepreneurs, us working both 9-to-5 jobs, motherhood, self-care, and just everything in between.
Yeah. So with that in mind, all of the things we're juggling, we like to do a mental health check-in every episode, see how we're doing, because we are juggling so much, managing our activewear business, 9-to-5 life, motherhood, all those things. So new week, new us. Kia, how's your mental health? How are you holding up?
Yes, I'm doing pretty good. Like you said, new week. You know what? We are in a new month. We're in the month of June, so I'm excited about that. And just a lot happening. Juneteenth, I'm really excited about celebrating Juneteenth. I love how I think every year it becomes more and more celebrated.
Yep.
I guess, now there's a federal holiday also. But yeah, I'm excited about that because we're having this awesome Juneteenth sale happening right now. Everything on our website is $19. So the orders have been flooding in, and that's just trying to keep organized. We're talking about balancing being mothers and entrepreneurs. So the entrepreneur side is coming home and having to fulfill these orders, right? Yep. And just trying to, make sure that everything is right and not make any mistakes. So that's where I am right now. How about you, Nicole? How are you?
Yeah, same. I'm good. I'm just, finding my days in the day to just relax and find a mental health break because I've find myself overwhelmed a lot every single day, and just finding that moment to reset. The orders are definitely overwhelming, gives you a little bit of anxiety when you have an influx, as a business owner, you have an influx that you're not used to. And so just trying to plan, but I think that's just good preparation for us to, as we grow the business, if we're getting 100 orders a day, we need to be prepared to fulfill those. So it's just, it's just preparing us for greatness. So I'm not too mad at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think overall just ready for the summer, ready for some beach, island vibes, and just a reset before the school year starts back up.
Definitely. And I'm glad that you mentioned that in terms of, the orders coming in, and it's how that is as us being entrepreneurs and owning your own business. You obviously want more business, you want orders, you want all of that, but when it can become overwhelming, right? Yep. So we are winding down our season here at Moms on a Mission podcast, and our last episode, we'll kind of dive a little bit into that. It'll be a season recap for all of our listeners, and we can touch base a little bit on just how that is, because it's tough to balance. And I feel like, anybody who's an entrepreneur knows you have to give yourself permission to, you want the success, but you also, when it starts happening, can feel overwhelmed. Like, that's okay. That's a real thing. Nobody's complaining. We just, like you said, it's preparing us to get a team in place.
Yep. I'm excited for the next and final episode, or it's coming up soon. I think we have a couple more episodes, but excited for that. And then maybe if you guys are watching this like on YouTube or on one of the platforms and you have some comments, let us know if for season 2 you want to get more, deeper into the business aspect in season 2, or just kind of what you guys want for season 2 as we start to plan for that in the fall too.
Yes. And that final episode will air on June 28th, everybody, just so y'all know, Wednesday, June 28th.
Yep. So let's go ahead and jump into our discussion for today's topics. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but the state of California, they're deciding to provide reparations to their residents. So reparations for Black people, as early as the summer, California may pass a bill that will give out reparations to its residents as a way to remedy the impact of slavery. So for anyone who doesn't know, I think most Black people, when you hear that word reparation, to a certain extent give us something back for everything we endured. But it is the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. So in our case, and that's just the dictionary definition of reparations, but in our case, white people making things right with us because they put us through so much as a people, from, stemming back from slavery, but even to this day with, how that has affected us and continues to affect our people to this day. So we're going to kind of dive into that in today's episode.
Yeah, I was a little bit excited about this topic because I feel like obviously I've heard of reparations before. I feel like this conversation has been had several times. I feel like it cycles through every few years. And I've never seen any actual reparations taking place for African Americans, because for anyone that doesn't know, reparations were given to the Japanese. And it was basically like America saying, we apologize for the internment camps that they put the Japanese in. I think I'm excited, what's going to happen with this reparations thing. I'm just like, California is starting, is every state, if California actually, passes this bill to give their residents some reparations, I wonder if other states will follow through. Because if so, I need Maryland to run me my check.
Yeah, and there's some downsides that activists are saying about this too, but we could touch on that a little bit later.
Absolutely. So again, I first heard this topic maybe a couple weeks ago, and I thought that California had already passed the bill, but that's not what happened. So what's happening right now is that the governor of California basically put together this task force to study how, systemic racism and how slavery and the effects of slavery have and are still impacting the residents of California. And so, they came out with this 500-page report, really just, again, examining slavery and the task force, I believe, is offering these recommendations on how California can right those wrongs and can they remedy, the impact of slavery. And so it says in this article that we read on abc.com, the task force offered recommendations for how to remedy the impact of slavery through monetary compensation, mental, emotional, and other types of rehabilitation and other forms of restitution for Black Californians. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's definitely an interesting topic because it's like, okay, once you hear it, okay, what am I going to get? Like, if this goes through, what am I going to get? So how would they pay? So state of California gave its reparations. If they gave their residents reparations, how much do you think that will cost? So obviously, money isn't, if you really give people what they deserve, it's kind of like, where's that money going to come from?
Yeah. And how much, right?
Like how much? Yeah, like exactly. How is it going to be calculated?
Yeah.
And so I think with the report, they didn't necessarily recommend an amount, but it was more so what they should get overall as far as compensation in a sense. So the amount calculated by the task force economists is $800 billion for California and possibly 14 trillion nationwide for reparations. So this is just as a whole, not necessarily what individual people would get. And then obviously there will be stipulations, like every single Black person is not going to get a grand amount of money. So I think that's a big thing as far as trying to, especially for California residents. Okay, I'm Black. It's just so many stipulations too. And I think we might be getting to this as far as having to trace down your ancestry to see, if you meet the qualifications to get these reparations, which to me, it's slightly not fair. It's like, you're making me do extra work to get my reparations. But when you look at me, you don't do that. You don't look at me and say, I'm going to treat her better because she's not as close to slavery, or I'm going to treat her, you know what I mean? So you don't look at me and do that. But now you have to go trace my ancestry before you can give me money. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Because I was thinking about that when I heard about this, in terms of reparations and what California is doing. My first thought, so here's the thing, let me back it up. I've said this in other episodes. my workplace is, I'm a teacher, and at my school, the administration is predominantly white, and there's maybe 2 Black teachers. So there are times where when these topics come up in the news or what have you, sometimes they look to me as the Black representative of the community, which is fine. I mean, I've definitely told some people, I'm fine with talking about certain topics. So of course I had a coworker that was like, as soon as this hopped in the news, so Kia, I want to get your opinion on this. And honestly, my first thought was like, where's the money going to come from? I'm not really sure exactly. And as I read deeper into this topic, I see that they're still having those conversations. So there's no clear answer on where the money is coming from. But I mean, I'm looking at these numbers like 14 trillion. If it was a bill that was passed and it's nationwide, that's a lot of money. And then of course, my next thought is like, what's the catch? Right? Is every Black person gonna, because I mean, if you think California is a big state, but everyone. And so there are some stipulations, like you said, and one of the catches is that you have to trace your lineage to free and enslaved Black people living in the U.S. during the 19th century. And so obviously people are upset about that because they are saying, they might have had ancestors that, the records weren't kept up, or people have changed their names since the 19th century. I mean, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, and that happened a lot.
I don't know how they're going to do that.
That happened a lot in the way that we were kind of transported as people, or, you may not know. Most people aren't going to know that information. So that's already like a like kind of a downside to it. It's like you said, people have changed their names. A lot of people had their slave master's name and last name, and then people wanted to change it to get away from that. So yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it can be traced. It's, for the most part, there are ways to trace, but again, it's just extra work, extra steps for us to even start the process, and hope that you're going to give me something worth. You know what I mean? Because you can say reparations, 800 billion for 800 billion for California. How many people is that divided amongst? Who's getting what percentage? And then I don't know if it'll be worth it. We don't know until the amount is determined and people start actually getting checks cut. Yeah. So again, this task force that the governor of California put together, they don't have this isn't a bill that has been passed. So let's make that clear. These are just recommendations as they studied, and they came up with a lot of stuff. I mean, we know deep down inside, and not even deep down inside, but just we have evidence of how slavery has impacted the Black community through housing, through healthcare. I mean, there's all kinds of ways with the wealth gap. So I wanted to read this little quote. It says, they found in the study that government actions and failures over 400 years have created a wealth gap that persists between Black and white Americans at all levels of income, regardless of education and family status. So this is all in their study, that segregation led to environmental harms, unequal education, health outcomes, over-policing of Black neighborhoods in California and across the nation. And the report says, I mean, it's government intertwined with, just a lot of factors, which is, in some ways, I like having that validation. Because again, for someone that lives in a predominantly white community, sometimes they want to say, you guys need to get over slavery. I mean, I've heard that several times, as I'm sure lots of people probably have, depending on what kind of group you're talking to. It's like, don't talk about slavery that happened. I mean, look, let's be honest. Look what's going on in Florida, and they're banning books, and they're trying to erase history. Get that man out of here. That's all I have to say about Florida. Please get that man out of here. But yeah, it's kind of like when you compare Florida and California, it's like, California is at least taking steps. Even if this is not passed yet, it's a good conversation. It's a good report to at least pull this data together and get the conversation started. Honestly, I think it may take, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon as far as Black people, any state getting actual reparations. But yeah, it's a thing that has a domino effect over the years. Like, so many Black people still in poverty because of mindset and how they've been treated and what they have not been given. And just real quick, I actually had a cousin who came into town this weekend, and we were talking about just DEI initiatives in the workplace, and how white people are, this is just so like blatant, but white people really are, they've been privileged, and the government was a part of that as far as history goes. And so she was saying they had a group discussion, and this white man, he was an older white man, he took accountability, and he was saying, you know, I have been raised since childhood to believe that I'm superior to Black people. So it's like the parents instilled that, because the government, you know, it's just domino effect again, that the things that have been done and allocated to white people and done for white people have made them to have better qualities of life than we have. And so that's where reparations are really needed.
Yeah. And I love it too, that this is a conversation starter. This is having a report, like I said, to, you know, the commentators are like, get over slavery, or we're not going to talk about it, or we shouldn't, you know, address it because we don't want to make the white kids feel bad. You have to talk about slavery. Everything happens, you know, one thing after the other, and they were results of, you know, the action before. So slavery happened. We were enslaved. We weren't slaves. We were enslaved. And then all of those things, even after we were free, and then there were sharecroppers. And then, I mean, just everything that happened, there's still, you know, a system basically that was created for Black people to fail. This system that was created in America was never created for us as Black and brown people to succeed here. So many things have trickled down. They like to say that trickle down effect. From slavery, things have trickled down. You cannot ignore what happened. You can't be at Z and be like, let's forget about all the other letters. We're here now. No, you can't.
In point blank period, we're not going to stop talking about it. We're not going to get over it. Even if we, even if
our history.
Yeah. Even if things start to shift, right? Say a lot of things are put into place and Black people are starting to thrive because of initiatives or reparations or whatever. We still have to continue to talk about it because we don't want to go back. There's always that window for, like, say they start sugaring us, buttering us up is what I'm trying to say. Buttering us up, giving us things. Yeah. And then we forget about the history. We stop talking about, oh, you know, we're good. Slavery is not talked about anymore. We can go back.
And we start voting. Then we start voting against our own interests.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, we're two steps away from things going backwards. I mean, my mom always jokes about, we could be at the back of the bus, you know, before you know it, just because if we're not paying attention, we're not paying attention to what's going on. Like, that's why we're having these conversations. If you don't know who you're voting for and putting in the office, if you're not, you know, paying attention to what's going on in your communities, it's just easy for people to get into office and stuff starts, you know, laws and stuff start changing that will affect us too. But I like how there's an Attorney General, Rob Bonta, that made this statement and said about the reparations. He said, without accountability, there is no justice. For too long, our nation has ignored the harms that have been and continue to be inflicted on African Americans in California and across the country. And so I just love that, again, this report really, you know, it's giving this accountability. It's saying that, you know, the government actions intertwine with private action. That's what caused, you know, that's what continued to perpetuate the wrongdoings against Black people. So do they owe us something? 100%. They definitely, in my opinion, every Black person should get something. But when I was trying to have this conversation with my coworker, because she started talking to me about, you know, teaching, she didn't want to say Black people, but teaching those who get the money how to save. And I'm like, girl, I didn't want to go too deep into it. Yes, we should save. When you are living paycheck to paycheck or in a, you know, low income neighborhood, it's hard to save. And so that's not what it is. I almost feel like I would rather than every Black person get a check, that they put large amounts of money and invest it into the communities. I would like to see better schools in some of our Black and brown communities. I would like better schools, like technology and the things like that. You know what I mean? I would like to see better grocery stores in some of the lower income communities. I would rather money be invested in that way rather than everyone just being handed a check. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think it should be a little bit of both, to be honest, because I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to get too into politics, but I think it could be a little bit of both. Black people deserve the option to invest their money how they choose to. we haven't had a lot of investment opportunities. We haven't been taught how to invest. That's not a part of our history. So I think to be able to do that and have the means to do that is important. But again, the schools, the hospitals, the different things in the community, I do think that, I mean, that's a part of just the government. That's how the system is set up. Why are our schools not as funded? You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't even be a part of reparations. That should just be a thing, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's like, we're going to give you the money that we
even
owe
have
you.
It's unfortunate that you even have to say that. Like, you wish,
you know
what I mean? Because it shouldn't even be a divide.
No, you're right. Because it's like, we owe you money, honestly, monetary compensation. We owe you because we've stripped so much away from you, but we're going to put it into your schools and stuff. But the reason why your schools and stuff are the way they are is because of what we did to you. So you're right. I can see it both ways. I think, I don't know. Like I said, at the end of the day, we are owed something. And I'm happy that this governor, at least, like you said earlier, is taking some steps to have this task force that spent a lot of time and hours really researching and studying. So that it's like, because again, with what's happening in Florida and people around the US who don't like facts and real history, like it's like tangible. It's like, we have it here, factual information that a lot of the reason why some of the Black communities are the way they are and what has happened to Black people and where they are is because of slavery. I mean, it's not taking away accountability for, we were enslaved. And so I robbed a bank or robbed a convenience store, not robbed a bank, robbed a convenience store. And then I got in trouble because I was hanging out with the wrong friends. Like, obviously, yes, you can make your own decisions, right? So obviously there are some situations where people have put themselves in, a bad situation, in jail or in trouble, what have you. Yes. But again, what was that child's life like? Was their father in the house? Was their father, put in jail or whatever because of, I feel like it's just like a cycle, you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
We're a product of our environment. Yeah. Period. So, and again, like you said, I didn't tell you, like, it could be two Black boys in the same neighborhood, growing up under the same circumstances. One may rob that convenience store. One may just work hard and go to college. So it's different, but it's still a product of your environment. And so the odds of more of those unfortunate situations, happening in a Black neighborhood are just higher because of the environment that we were placed in. So
and everything that has happened, all of the results of not just slavery, but this whole civil rights movement. I mean, Jim Crow. So after we were freed, it was so much other things. I mean, they were hanging us, and
as a people, we've been
terrorized
so much. Yes, and that's why a lot of Black people have mental health issues, because it's been passed down, and their parents have been through so much, and it's just, again, going back to just the domino effect. And it's unfortunate. And, even this podcast episode, us talking about it, is just another step in bringing awareness to it. And hopefully one day we can get to a better place, a better space, reparations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm here for it. So we'll see what happens. And just a quick recommendation as we're talking about this, a great book that I've just finished reading called Homegoing by Gyasi, Yaagagyasi, I believe. Homegoing, it really goes through like a Black family's lineage, but it starts at with the family in Africa, like in their tribe and everything. And then what happened when the Europeans came to Africa and then, settled there. And then when slavery, and it just goes all the way down. So it really starts from like going out, inward to out. And just all of the things that have happened in like these two families with alcoholism and, just the struggle that Black people have had because of like all of these things. Like, again, even though we were free, there were still certain things happening. Like in Baltimore, you had to show your papers that you were free. And then they were rounding up people just if they didn't have their papers, and that ripped away families. I mean, there's a family in the story where a wife was just taken. A husband went looking for her. She was just taken. And so his depression, and then the kids watching dad going through that. And so when you mentioned the mental health thing, that's why I love that book, because it really does open up a bigger conversation about the Black existence and where we are today. And not to like make an excuse, because I just feel like that's what white people or that's what opponents will say, like you just make an excuse, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But it's real. It's real trauma that has passed down. So it's not even just the monetary. And they do say this in their recommendations, the task force, they say monetary compensation, mental, emotional, and other types of rehabilitation. So they do mention that, because other things, not just they stripped away like money and things like that, land, but mentally and emotionally, our people just went through so much. And for us to be where we are is amazing. It's a testament to just how resilient, how, amazing we are. But at the same time, it makes me sad, because when I think about these things,
I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah. When I think about them, it's like, it's just, it definitely is an eye opener.
Yeah. It's so many, just hearing you talk about just like, kind of the history of it. You think about just minor instances that could have occurred that could just have a mental effect. So just like men are masculine, right? But imagine your dad, you're a little bit further back in history. Your dad is being emasculated by a white man because, he's calling him boy, he's beating him, and you're a child watching this, and your dad is feeling like, damn, I can't even protect my kids. So just thinking about the people who lived during that time and like the different emotional, mental things that are going through each person's mind as things are happening. It's just, or even as far as lynching, they're lynching people in front of their kids. And
I know. Wow. You're right. And you're right. I'm like emotional about it, because when I finished the book, I cried for like 15 minutes because it's like sad, it's upsetting, and then it angers me. It angers me because, again, I'm someone that works primarily around mostly white people, and I've lived in a town. I haven't been hosed down or dogs chasing me, but there's racist stuff that has happened to me here in this town. So it's triggering it, but it's a reminder. And it also reminded me of like, you know what, I got to make sure I teach my child history. It's just so important for us to know our history and study that and know what's going on, because like I keep mentioning, they really trying to ban books. They're trying to erase history. So shout out to California for at least acknowledging history, because this is American history. This is not just African American history. Acknowledging it, creating this report, so we have like this tangible proof. Like I hope this report is public. I didn't look that up. I want to print it out. I want to carry that junk around. Yeah. So I could say, look, it's definitely real.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this topic. I love, getting deep in certain topics like this that impact us as a people, because that's something that we do with our business, with our brand, and just really focusing and highlighting and trying to better our people through what we do with just living healthier. So I like having conversations like this. I hope that this sparks some juices in somebody's mind to just make sure you're thinking about things and being aware and conscious of what's happening in the world. But yeah, thank you guys. Oh, chime in the comment section too, especially if you're watching it on YouTube. But thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. Behind Glamourina, Moms on a Mission. We have a passion for building sisterhood through wellness and creating a safe space where all women feel like they belong.
Yes, and be sure to visit glamourina.com to shop culturally inspired activewear that reminds you that you are enough. Stay well, and until next episode.